Welcome to No Sleep, where the night never ends, and every whisper in the dark could be something real. Tonight's story isn't just horror. It's a memory, a warning, a door that should have stayed closed. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't fall asleep. I had long buried that part of myself. The thrill seeker, the ghost hunter, the fool who once danced with death in graveyards and abandoned buildings. Years had passed since those high school nights, filled with adrenaline, cheap beer, and Ouija boards scrawled on pizza boxes. Time had changed us all. Some of us got married, others disappeared into the chaos of adult life. As for me, I clung to routine like a lifeline, avoiding anything that reminded me of the dark edges we once chased. Then Mike called. His voice hadn't changed much. Still smooth, still charismatic. But there was something under it this time. An urgency. A tremor. Like he was already standing at the edge of something terrible and smiling back at me, daring me to join him. "One last trip," he said. I should have said no. Everything in me screamed to hang up. But the part of me that remembered the way we used to feel, untouchable, immortal, invincible, leaned in. "A national park," he continued. "Ever heard of Black Hollow?" The name didn't ring any bells, but when I looked it up, the articles hit me like a cold wind. Missing campers, vanished hikers, rescue teams that never returned, unexplained screams in the trees, dozens of stories, hundreds of disappearances, no explanations. "Why there?" I asked. "Because it's real this time," he said. "Not ghosts or cold spots or busted buildings. Real fear, real stakes." And just like that, I was hooked again. The drive to Black Hollow was surreal. As the cities thinned out and the forests grew dense and wild, I felt like I was driving into another world, one that didn't obey the same rules as ours. Fog rolled off the trees like smoke, and the sky never quite seemed to brighten, even though it was early afternoon. My GPS glitched multiple times, freezing on a spinning wheel, until I gave up and followed handwritten directions Mike had emailed me the day before. At the entrance to the park stood a weather-beaten wooden sign, half rotted and coated in moss. There were no rangers, no kiosks, no friendly welcome brochures, just a gravel path that wound into the trees like a throat, ready to swallow us. I met the others at a clearing near a rusted-out fire tower. Mike was there, of course, looking older but no less confident, wearing a smirk that hadn't aged a day. Beside him was Brenda, now his girlfriend, sharp-eyed and sarcastic. Josh, the quiet one, had brought his camera. Amber, who'd once claimed to see spirits, had a flask in hand and a cigarette behind one ear. And Alex? Well, Alex had a hunting rifle strapped to his back and a permanent scowl. He was always the skeptic, the cynic, the one who said demons were just metaphors for trauma. There were 6 of us, like always. We hadn't seen each other in nearly a decade, but for a moment, it felt like high school again. Jokes were shared, old stories were retold, but underneath the laughter was something else. Tension, unease. Like we all knew this wasn't just a reunion, it was a reckoning. Mike laid out the plan over a makeshift fire pit. Hike in a few miles, set up camp, stay 2 nights. We weren't here for ghost stories. We were here to investigate. Mike had printed out every missing person report from the last 5 years. Dozens of them. Names, photos, last known locations. Most had vanished within a specific radius of a glade known only on older maps. Locals called it the Still. No one went there anymore, not even search and rescue. People don't just vanish, Mike said. Not unless something's taking them. Brenda rolled her eyes. So we're gonna find Bigfoot? No, Mike replied. We're gonna find the truth. I didn't sleep that night. None of us really did. The woods were too loud, but not in a normal way. The sounds weren't just owls or wind or rustling leaves. There were strange clicks, rhythmic knocks, long, slow groans that sounded too deep for any tree. At one point, I thought I heard whispering, high-pitched and breathy, like someone breathing nonsense right into my ear. When I turned to look, no one was there. The fire was still burning. Everyone else seemed to be asleep. But I swear something moved between the trees. Morning brought no relief. The sun barely pierced the canopy. The shadows stayed long and cold. Josh tried to take pictures, but his camera battery died almost instantly. Amber joked that the forest was a black hole for tech. Alex grumbled that we should pack up and leave, but Mike was already marching ahead, compass in hand, map folded in his back pocket. And we followed. We hiked deeper, past dead trees twisted in unnatural shapes, past bones that didn't belong to any known animal. The path, if there ever was one, disappeared within an hour. Birds stopped singing. The air grew thick, heavy. I felt pressure in my skull, like I was descending underwater. By midday, we reached the edge of the still. It didn't look like much, just a wide glade of soft grass, surrounded by ancient pines. But the moment we stepped near it, everything changed. Sound dropped away. Our footsteps didn't echo. The breeze vanished. Even our breathing seemed muted. It was like the forest was holding its breath. "Guys," Brenda said, "I don't like this place." Mike smiled. "Exactly. That means we're close." He didn't notice the way her hands were shaking, or how Josh kept glancing behind him, like someone was walking in our shadow. That night, we camped at the edge of the still. We made a bigger fire, talked louder, tried to laugh, but nothing pierced the silence that had settled in our bones. And then Mike had the idea. "We should try to find one of the missing," he said. "Just for a few hours. Who knows? We might make history." Amber refused. Josh hesitated. Brenda said she'd go, maybe just to keep an eye on Mike. Alex didn't care. He just wanted to shoot something. They left at midnight, and they didn't come back. We waited. The fire crackled, throwing distorted shadows across our faces as the hours passed. The laughter was long gone now. The energy had shifted, solidifying into something weighty and oppressive, like a pressure system pressing down on our campsite. Amber sat silently, staring at the dark tree line. Her hand gripped the flask so tightly, her knuckles had turned white. Josh stood pacing in tight, nervous circles, occasionally fiddling with his dead camera. I sat cross-legged near the fire, watching the flames more out of fear than warmth, because beyond them, the forest felt hungry. "They should have been back by now," I finally said, breaking the silence. Josh stopped pacing. "It's been almost 4 hours." Amber's voice was dry. "What if they're messing with us? You know how Mike is, always pushing things too far." But she didn't believe her own words. None of us did. The woods had gone too quiet again. No wind, no crickets, no snapping twigs or rustling leaves. Just silence, thick and unnatural. Josh grabbed the rifle Alex had left behind, checked its load like he actually knew how to use it, and looked to me. "We should go find them, or go back," Amber added, "to the cars. Get help." I hesitated. The thought of leaving the others behind made my stomach twist, but so did the idea of heading deeper into the black unknown. We don't even know which way they went. I saw them go northeast, Josh said, toward the far side of the still. Brenda was using a headlamp. That settled it. We packed only what we could carry: flashlights, batteries, the rifle, and our fading sense of courage, and left the safety of the fire behind. The still looked different at night. The air was colder than it should have been, and a pale mist curled across the ground like grasping fingers. Every tree looked taller, more twisted, leaning in at unnatural angles like they were whispering to each other. Our flashlight beams didn't reach far, just enough to catch the occasional flutter of leaves or the reflection of our own eyes staring back at us in panic. I kept expecting to hear something: footsteps, laughter, anything. But the silence persisted, until it didn't. A scream split the forest, sharp, high-pitched, human. It was Brenda. Then it cut off, mid-breath, as if someone had crushed the air from her lungs. Josh took off in a sprint without a word. I followed, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly, catching flashes of trees and thick underbrush. Amber fell behind, limping slightly on a twisted ankle. We tore through the woods for what felt like minutes, until we stumbled into a clearing, a place that wasn't on any map. The ground here was wrong. The soil was black and wet, squelching beneath our feet as if saturated with blood. Massive stones, arranged in a perfect spiral, jutted from the earth like teeth. Something ancient had been built here, something we were never meant to find. And at the center of it stood Mike, or at least something that looked like Mike. He was standing too still, too rigid, his arms limp at his sides, his face downturned. Blood soaked his shirt, caked around his mouth, and dripped slowly from his fingertips. In his right hand, he held Brenda's flashlight, flickering weakly against the dark. "Mike?" Josh called, stepping forward. I grabbed his arm. "Wait." Mike twitched, like a puppet on strings. His head jerked upward, but his eyes weren't looking at us. They were rolled back, showing only the whites. His jaw hung slack, swinging gently in the cold breeze. Blood bubbled from his throat when he opened his mouth. And then he spoke. But it wasn't him. The voice was warped, glitchy, like a tape played backward and forward at the same time. It sounded like Mike, but not quite. Too deep, too wet, too wrong. "Come back. We found something." Josh raised the rifle. "What the hell is this?" Mike took a step forward, his neck cracked sideways. "Mike is here. We are all here." Behind him, the trees shifted. Something moved between them. Dozens of somethings. Shapes. Forms. Crawling. Lurching. Watching. "Run!" I shouted. We ran. Amber was screaming behind us, limping faster than I thought possible. Josh fired blindly into the trees, the muzzle flash briefly illuminating shapes I'll never forget. Bone-white arms, too long for the body they hung from, empty eyes that blinked sideways, mouths split vertically down their skulls. Whatever was in the woods wasn't human, and it didn't want us to leave. Branches clawed at our faces. Roots reached up like hands. The trees themselves seemed to shift positions, trying to trap us. I tripped once, felt something brush my ankle, a hand or maybe a tentacle, but Josh dragged me up before it could pull me under. We didn't stop until we collapsed in a shallow ravine, muddy, cold, breathing like we'd run for hours. Amber was sobbing. "Where's Brenda? Did you see her? Where's Alex?" Josh didn't answer. Neither did I, because at that moment, I realized something terrifying. We weren't lost. The forest knew exactly where we were. We rested for barely a minute, then climbed out of the ravine and headed in the direction we hoped led back to camp. My flashlight flickered and died. Amber's went next. Only Josh's weak beam remained, leading us through the murk. That's when we heard it again. "Help, please," a voice. Faint, familiar. Alex. It came from behind a massive tree, just out of sight. He sounded weak, hurt. We stopped. "Alex," Josh called. "Hurts. It hurts," the voice whimpered. But something was off. The rhythm of the voice was too perfect. The timing too even. Like it was being read from a script. Rehearsed. Amber whispered, "That's not him. Don't go." Josh ignored her. He stepped forward, raising his light. And that's when we saw it. Alex was sitting on the ground, knees up to his chest, but his arms were all wrong, twisted behind him, bent at the elbows like a broken marionette. His face was pale, bloodless. His eyes were wide open, and his mouth was moving, even though his throat had been slit open to the spine. "Hurts. It hurts." Josh screamed and fired, and the body collapsed like a deflated balloon. The voice stopped instantly. From behind us, a howl rose, high-pitched, inhuman, mocking. We turned and ran again. We didn't know where we were going. We just knew we couldn't stop. By the time we stopped running, morning had broken, or something that resembled it. The sky above was pale gray, colorless and still. No sun, just ambient light leaking through the clouds like fog through a cracked ceiling. The forest around us had changed again. The trees were no longer pine or oak, but something older. Bark like petrified bone, roots like knotted veins. They twisted into each other as if the woods were alive, suffocating themselves in a slow, endless embrace. I fell to my knees, chest heaving, and looked around. Josh was doubled over, clutching his side. Amber was behind him, limping and pale, her eyes unfocused. She hadn't said a word since we left Alex's imitation behind. No birds, no wind, just that same sterile quiet, like the world was holding its breath again. "Where the hell are we?" Josh finally asked. I checked my phone. Still no signal. My compass? Spinning in lazy circles like it had given up. Every landmark we passed was unfamiliar. No more fire tower, no still, no ravine, just the trees, watching. We set off again, trying to retrace our steps, but the paths made no sense. What should have led downhill began to rise. Trees shifted when we weren't looking, blocking the way we'd just come. It was like the forest was moving, or worse, like we were walking in circles, even when we weren't. At some point, we stumbled upon a shallow creek that ran blood red through the dirt. Josh dipped his hand in and recoiled. "It's warm." Amber finally spoke. "That's not water." She was right. I didn't ask what it was. We followed it anyway, not because it felt right, but because it felt like the only direction that hadn't closed itself off to us. Eventually, it led us to a strange clearing, an unnatural ring of perfectly circular stones. Each stone was carved with deep runes, illegible and pulsing faintly beneath the moss. In the center was a tree. It wasn't large, it wasn't old, it was wrong. Its trunk was black, slick like oil, and split at the top like open jaws. From the mouth of it, something hung, draped like a curtain, tattered, Pale? Cloth? No. Skin. I staggered back. We shouldn't be here. Josh nodded. Let's go. That's when we heard the footsteps. They didn't come from any direction. They came from every direction, all at once, soft, measured, heavy. We raised the rifle, only one shot left, and then, from between the trees, they emerged. At first, I thought they were people. They looked like people. Their bodies were tall, thin, wrapped in ragged hiking gear and flannel, faces obscured by old hats or hoods. But as they stepped closer, the flaws appeared. One had no eyes, just smooth, pale skin where they should have been. Another's mouth stretched ear to ear, stitched shut with rusted wire. A third's limbs bent the wrong way, joints reversed like a broken toy. They weren't walking, they were puppeted. Each movement was stiff, mechanical, as if their strings were being pulled by something beneath the ground. Amber dropped to her knees. Oh God, oh God. Josh held the rifle up and shouted, "Stay back!" The things stopped, as if obeying him. Then, in unison, they turned their heads, not toward us, toward the tree. Something stepped out of it, not from behind it, from inside it. The black trunk split further, and something enormous slid into the clearing, its surface oily and shifting like boiling tar. It had too many limbs, too many eyes, all blinking at once. Its form wasn't fixed. Every time I tried to focus, it changed. Mouths where there had been none, arms morphing into antlers, a spine that extended into the canopy like a centipede made of bones. It didn't move fast. It didn't have to, because the forest belonged to it. And so did we. It opened one of its mouths. A sound leaked out. Not a growl or scream, a whisper. Dozens of voices, hundreds, all speaking at once. Where are you going? Stay with us. Join the hollow. I screamed. Amber screamed louder. Josh fired. The bullet struck the thing's surface and vanished into it without a sound. No blood, no impact, no effect. The forest exploded into motion. The puppet things surged forward. Their bodies moved like insects, skittering over the ground, claws and broken limbs lashing through the air. Josh dropped the rifle and grabbed Amber, dragging her to her feet. I didn't need to be told. We ran again. The forest didn't even pretend to be normal anymore. Trees folded away from the thing, bending unnaturally. The ground shifted beneath our feet. At one point, I swore I saw the sky. Blink. 2 massive eyelids closing across the clouds. We fell down a steep incline, half sliding, half tumbling, into a dense thicket. Thorns tore at our clothes, drew blood. I didn't care. I just kept moving. We finally collapsed in what seemed like a cave, a hollow at the base of a fallen tree, deep enough to crawl into and hide. We lay there, all 3 of us, breathing as quietly as we could. Outside, the footsteps passed again, then silence, then a voice, familiar. Amber, help me. It was Brenda. Amber twitched. It's her. No, I hissed. It's not. Amber began to crawl out. Josh pulled her back. It's copying us. You heard Mike. You saw Alex. But what if... The voice cut off. For a second, there was only breathing. Then, just behind us, something slid across the bark. A single word, whispered right into the tree hollow. Found you. The roots exploded inward. The creature reached in, its arm made of rot and bone and shadow. Josh threw himself at it, punching, screaming, anything to buy us time. Amber and I ran. I didn't see what happened to him. I didn't want to. We didn't stop until we broke through the trees into an open glade, and for the first time in what felt like days, we saw something man-made. A cabin. Old, rotting, but real. A final flicker of hope. Amber sobbed and sprinted toward it. I followed. But even as I reached the front porch, I realized the forest wanted us to find this. It wasn't salvation. It was the next part of the ritual. The door wasn't locked. That should have been the first warning. It creaked open on hinges so rusted, they sounded like screaming metal. The interior was dark. Too dark for the faint gray daylight still pressing in from outside. Dust hung in the air like fog. The air was thick with rot, mildew, and something metallic. Amber stumbled in first. We made it. Oh God, we made it. I stepped in after her, but I didn't share her relief. The cabin didn't feel abandoned. It felt waiting. The space inside was tight and choked with clutter. Broken furniture, shelves lined with moldy books, jars filled with cloudy fluid, and things that might have once been alive. The walls were stained with black marks that looked like old blood smears, or maybe fingerprints dragged downward by something too tall to be human. At the center of the single room was a table. A journal lay on it, warped by moisture. The leather cover split open like dry skin. Beneath it, hundreds of pages, some handwritten, others printed, were nailed or tied to the wood like offerings. Amber collapsed onto a dusty couch and stared blankly ahead, her whole body trembling. I approached the table. The journal's first entry was dated September 18th, 1947. They brought it here during the war. Said it was older than time. Said it didn't breathe, but it thought. Said it fed not on flesh, but memory, identity, the human soul. They chained it in the forest and built the park around it, like a graveyard with no headstones. We weren't supposed to find it. We weren't supposed to open the roots. Each page was more frantic than the last. Entries scrawled in broken handwriting, symbols I didn't recognize, pages written entirely in blood, descriptions of hikers vanishing without a trace, stories of people who returned but were wrong, empty-eyed, smiling with the wrong teeth, repeating phrases like recordings. One note was written in block letters, burned into the paper. The forest doesn't kill you, it empties you. It plants something inside. Another, barely legible. The missing aren't gone. They're walking the woods, hollowed out like wasp nests. Sometimes they speak, sometimes they scream. But they are never alone. It wears them like clothes. I slammed the journal shut. The walls groaned in response. Amber hadn't moved. She was staring at something across the room, a faded photo nailed to the wall. Her lips trembled. "Kwong," she whispered. That's Mike." I turned. It was Mike, standing beside a ranger in a black and white photo, holding what looked like a surveying tool. The image was dated 1952. Mike hadn't aged a day in the photo. Same face, same smirk, but that was impossible. Amber pointed to another, Josh, dated 1971, Brenda, 1986, me. My heart dropped into my stomach. It was a photo of me standing in front of the fire tower, except I had never posed for that picture. I had never even seen the camera. But there I was, smiling, alive. Underneath, someone had written in red ink, "Taken, still useful." Amber began to cry. I pulled her back from the wall and turned to the door. "We need to go. Now." She didn't argue. Outside, the forest had changed again. The trees leaned inward, forming a dome over the cabin like a sealed mouth. The sky above was pitch black, though neither of us had noticed night falling. Fog rolled in so thick, we couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Amber clung to me. It's watching. We're not giving it what it wants. A noise answered us. Not footsteps, a thrum, a deep, low vibration through the ground, like a heartbeat made of roots. Each pulse sent a wave of nausea up through my legs into my chest. I nearly collapsed. From behind the trees, something began to whisper. Not in words, in memories. I heard my mother calling me for dinner when I was 8. Heard my father yelling at me the day he left. Heard Mike, years ago, laughing as we jumped a fence to sneak into the cemetery. Amber was shaking violently. Make it stop! I saw Josh's face, grinning, then screaming. I saw Alex lighting fireworks on graduation night, Brenda at the lake holding a Polaroid camera. Then, Amber's voice, crying, "No, please, not this." She dropped to her knees, and then she spoke. Not to me, to it. "I'll stay," she said quietly. "Just let him go." I turned, horrified. "Amber, what are you doing?" Her eyes were vacant, pupils blown wide. She looked through me. "It only wants one. It needs one. No, no." I grabbed her arm. She pulled away. "If I stay, it lets you leave." "I'm not leaving you." The ground split open between us. Thick roots, black and pulsing, erupted like snakes. They coiled around Amber's legs and arms, pulling her gently but firmly toward the center of the clearing. She didn't scream. She smiled. "Tell people," she whispered. "Make them stop coming." Then the roots pulled her under. The earth sealed shut without a trace. I collapsed. I don't know how long I lay there, minutes, hours. The fog thinned, the dome of trees loosened, the heartbeat faded, the whispers stopped, and for the first time I heard something normal, a car horn, in the distance. I staggered through the forest in a daze, guided by the horn, the faint sound of a car radio, a child laughing. I emerged into sunlight, real sunlight, for the first time in days. The visitor center, my car, clean, untouched. The lot was full of tourists unloading coolers and cameras. A ranger waved at a passing RV. Kids ran around chasing each other with sticks. It was like nothing had happened, like the forest had reset, erased us. I got in my car, shaking, covered in dirt and blood, and something I didn't want to identify. I saw a family walking toward the woods, a father, a mother, 2 kids. I didn't stop them. I couldn't. Because just before I turned the ignition, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw Amber sitting in the back seat, smiling. But it wasn't her. I don't remember the drive home. One moment, I was sitting in my car at the visitor's center, staring at the spot where Amber had been sitting. The next, I was unlocking the door to my apartment, hundreds of miles away, the key trembling in my hand. My clothes were still torn, my boots caked in dried mud and blood. Time hadn't passed. Not really. My phone said it had been 2 days, but the messages, the missed calls, they were from a week ago, and no one mentioned my friends. The news had nothing, no missing persons alerts, no ranger interviews, no bizarre activity in Black Hollow. It was like they had never existed, like we'd never been there. I tried calling their numbers, Mike, Brenda, Alex, Josh. Each one rang once, then disconnected. I messaged Amber, even though I knew what I'd seen. The text sent. No reply. The next day, I woke up to find dirt on my bedroom floor. Thick clumps, like from a shovel. There were wet footprints leading from my bed to the bathroom mirror. My reflection was staring at me, smiling, when I wasn't. I punched the mirror so hard it shattered across the sink. The pieces didn't fall. They stayed suspended, floating in place like time had paused around them. Then the largest shard turned and showed me a forest behind me, a glimpse of trees that shouldn't have been there. When I turned around, I was still in my apartment. The glass dropped. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw roots growing through the walls, faces pushing against the windows from the inside, whispers from the closet, my own voice calling out from another room. I started hearing things in the vents, sometimes laughter, sometimes crying, sometimes nothing at all, and nothing was worse. I found myself checking the corners of every room, the dark spots under furniture, the reflection in the TV when it was turned off, because sometimes I'd catch it, the thing that followed me back. It never looked the same twice. Sometimes it was Mike's face, smiling too wide. Sometimes it was Amber, whispering, "We never left." Sometimes it was me, another version of myself, watching from just behind the shower curtain, breathing a half second out of sync. One night, I awoke to find a photo on my nightstand, old, sepia-toned, a group of campers in vintage clothes, smiling in front of a fire tower. There were 6 of them, and one of them was me. I tried to burn it, but the flames curled away from the paper. The photo wouldn't burn, wouldn't tear, wouldn't leave. I tried going to the police. I sat across from an officer, recounting everything. The trip, the woods, the creature, the cabin. He nodded patiently, then handed me a manila folder. Inside were photos, still frames from traffic cameras, gas stations, security footage, all of me, alone, no one else in the car, no one in the park, no one in the woods. In all these places, he said, you're the only one who exists. But we were together, I snapped. There were 6 of us. He tapped the folder, not according to any evidence. He leaned closer. And if you keep insisting otherwise, they'll take you next. I left. I moved apartments, changed numbers, got a new job in another state. I tried to forget, but you can't forget something that's inside you. Because one morning, I found something growing in my closet. Roots. Black. Oozing. Pulsing. I cut them, burned them, tore the drywall out. But the next morning, they were back. And they had grown deeper, like they weren't coming from the wall. Like they were coming from me. And then the dreams started again. Not the nightmares. The forest, alive, aware, breathing. It watches through every tree, every screen, every mirrored surface. It remembers me, because I carry it, because I fed it. That's when the letters started arriving. No return address. Inside, photos of strangers, of families, hiking, camping, laughing, all in black hollow. On the back of each photo, written in familiar handwriting, you didn't stop them. And I'd see it. Just behind them, in the trees, a shape, a shadow. Sometimes tall, sometimes crawling, sometimes wearing Amber's face. I went to a library and checked the town's public records. The park had no mention, no registration, no history. Every search led to a dead link or a redirection. Then I found something old. A government file from 1943. Redacted, barely legible. Only one phrase stood out. Project Hollowroot. Memetic entity. Non-Euclidean behavioral model. Containment dependent on public ignorance. Then, handwritten in the margins, if it's seen, it spreads. If it's remembered, it grows. So now I know the truth. It doesn't just want you to enter. It wants you to talk. It wants stories. It wants memory. That's how it grows. That's why it let me go. I'm a vector. I'm a seed. So if you're reading this, if you've made it this far, then you've seen too much. You've remembered. And it's coming for you now, too. The next time you hear a voice in the woods that sounds like someone you lost, don't follow it. And whatever you do, don't look behind you. I kept the curtains shut now, not for privacy, for survival. Because sometimes, in the late hours of the night, I saw it. The outline of the forest, reflected in the window. Tall, skeletal trees, bending in a wind I couldn't feel. And between them, shapes, watching, reaching, learning. Not from Black Hollow, but from here. My apartment, my city, my world. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. But true insanity is knowing you've already lost and still trying anyway. I was already infected. I could feel it like a second heartbeat. Not in my chest, but behind my eyes. In my dreams. In the itch under my skin. I felt it when I stared too long at the ceiling and saw it breathe. I heard it when my own voice echoed wrong in the shower, slightly off pitch, like I wasn't the only one speaking. And still, I fought, because I had to try. I joined every online forum, every conspiracy board, every paranormal subreddit. I left anonymous warnings. I posted photos of the mass grave. I recreated the forest from memory using Google Earth coordinates, triangulating trees that shouldn't exist. I told people not to go to Black Hollow, that it was a trap, a feeding ground. Most laughed. Some blocked me, but a few believed. One of them messaged me. I've been there. I saw it too. Her name was Casey, former park ranger, quit after her brother went missing in Black Hollow in 2019. She'd seen the faces in the trees, heard her brother's voice coming from under the dirt. She never went back. Until now. We met in a hotel on the edge of another forest entirely. Red Rock National Preserve. Desert cliffs. Not a tree in sight. Still, I didn't trust the shadows. Casey was in her 30s, tough, smart, dead eyes. She'd seen things worse than death. She brought evidence, photos, maps, files she'd stolen before quitting the ranger service. She laid it out on the bedspread like a grim puzzle. And I saw the full picture. Black Hollow wasn't the only one. There were dozens of parks, forests, and trail systems with similar records. Unusually high disappearance rates, overlapping ranger reports, strange wildlife behavior, distorted GPS coordinates, and in every case, no official investigation, no media coverage, no public warnings. And then the kicker, shared symbols. Every site had carvings on trees or rocks, symbols like roots spiraling into eyes, mouths with no tongues, mirrored triangles. Casey called them anchors. They're not entrances, she told me. They're veins. It doesn't live in the forest. The forest lives in it. And it was spreading. There were reports of phantom woods appearing overnight on people's dash cams. Whole hiking groups disappearing and reappearing with different voices. One man came back speaking backwards for a week before clawing his own throat out. Another woman turned up hundreds of miles from her last known location, blind and pregnant, with something that had teeth before it had fingers. The more people knew, the more it grew. Knowledge fed it. Memory shaped it. I wanted to run, to disappear off the grid. But Casey had a different idea. We contain it, she said. We bury the signal. Her theory was simple, insane, and maybe brilliant. If it spread through information, maybe we could corrupt its signal, hide it behind a counter meme, an anti-signal, a ritual of forgetting. We'd flood the internet with fake black hollow content, ghost stories, ARGs, creepypasta, TikToks. Dilute the truth. Make it fiction again. Turn memory into myth. That's the only way we win, she said. We lie louder than it speaks. So we launched a campaign, coded it in hashtags, dressed it up as horror games, released it as found footage and alternate reality stories. We made the truth look ridiculous, and for a while, it worked. Searches for Black Hollow got buried in parody videos and teenage clickbait. Reddit banned any serious threads as spam. Even the YouTube algorithm started flagging Forest content as recycled horror. We watched the digital pulse of the entity slow down until it changed the rules. Casey was the first to notice. She stopped replying to messages. Her signal went dark. I checked her last known GPS location. It was in the middle of an urban city, miles from any known park. She wasn't pulled into the forest. The forest came to her. I visited her apartment, empty, except for the roots. They were growing up through the bathtub drain, through the cracks in the tile, writhing across the kitchen floor like veins pumped full of memory. On her wall, written in ash, "You made me louder." And below it, "Now I don't need trees." That's when I realized the forest was never a place. It was a mind, a sentient, mimetic ecosystem, one that could hijack biology, bend space, infect thought. Once it was local. Now it was global. Now it could ride a podcast, a viral video, a TikTok with forest ambience, a text like this one. It didn't need trees anymore. It just needed an audience, and people were listening. The TikTok account we created, it exploded. The joke, ARG, millions of players. Black Hollow was trending. I felt sick, because we hadn't buried it. We had fed it. We'd turned it into a viral legend. And now, everyone knew its name. Everyone had seen its face. Last night, I got a notification. A new video uploaded to our own YouTube channel. I didn't make it. Casey's voice narrates over glitchy forest footage, but her face is wrong. She smiles at the camera like her skin doesn't fit right. She says, "This isn't a story anymore. This is a forest, and you're already in it. Turn around." The video ends with a sound like breathing inside my headphones. And then my phone locked itself. Background, a forest. I'm writing this on a borrowed laptop in a city I won't name. But it's here now. I see trees in the walls. I hear footsteps in the plumbing. I think I'm growing something under my skin. Something that twitches when I remember too hard. And still, I write. Because you need to know the final piece. The one no one wants to say out loud. We were never the victims. We were the soil. It's hard to say what's real anymore. I don't sleep. I don't eat. I don't even feel time passing. Some days the sun rises twice. Some nights never end. I can no longer tell if the scratching behind the walls is mice or memories trying to dig themselves out of me. And the worst part, I'm beginning to forget their names. I wrote them on the walls, over and over. Mike, Brenda, Josh, Alex, Amber. They meant something once. But now the letters blur, rearrange, dissolve. I wake up with new ones carved into my skin. Names I don't recognize. People I've never met. But I remember them. Because I've absorbed them. Because the forest is no longer just around me, it's inside me. You don't know what it's like to feel your own soul rot. To feel your memories rewritten. It doesn't just take your past, it rewilds it. I remember a childhood I never had. A mother with bark for skin. A bedroom where the walls pulsed like lungs. A first kiss in a clearing full of whispering leaves. It feels real. More real than the life I lived before. More real than this room. More real than you. There's a mirror in the bathroom that I've covered with a sheet, but sometimes, when I pass it, I catch glimpses. Not of me. Of roots spreading through the walls. Of a face behind mine, pressing against my skull from the inside. Of my eyes blinking before I do. And at night, the sheet moves by itself. I tried calling out for help. The line connects, but no one speaks. Just breathing. Then they whisper, "What do trees dream of?" And hang up. I tried carving the symbols out of my skin. The spiral, the triangle, the mouth. But they just grow back. Sometimes in different places. I woke up once and they were on the ceiling. Another time, burned into toast. One appeared in the condensation on my mirror. A perfect spiral of teeth, and every time I see them, I hear it whispering from somewhere just out of reach. "You're not sick. You're sprouting." I left the city last week, or thought I did. I drove for hours, trying to get anywhere else, but the signs all pointed back to where I started. Gas stations vanished behind me, roads twisted. I saw the same billboard 6 times in one stretch of highway. A smiling ranger welcoming families to Black Hollow National Park. I looked up the ranger's name. It was Mike. I'm not running anymore. Because I think I know what it wants. It doesn't want to kill us. It wants to become us. To crawl into every crack in our minds. To erase cities and replace them with groves of memory. To hollow out every person until they're nothing but skin and echoes. To turn humanity into a forest of thought. The final stage isn't death. It's replacement. I've started seeing people who shouldn't exist. Neighbors I never had. Teachers from schools I didn't attend. One of them asked how I liked the trees around my apartment. I don't have any. Not anymore. But when I looked out my window that night, the skyline was gone. Only forest. Tall. Endless. Breathing. I saw a headline on the news yesterday. Mass disappearances in national parks. Attributed to social media hoax. I recognized the anchor. It was Brenda. Smiling too wide. Lips moving slightly before the words came out. They're in the system now. They're speaking through our media. They've colonized communication. So here's the truth. The only truth I have left. There is no forest. There is no black hollow. There is no map you can burn or ritual you can repeat. There is only the idea of it. And once you've let it in, once you've read this far, it's already growing inside you. You'll see it soon. In the quiet places. In the flicker of a reflection that doesn't blink with you. In the way your thoughts echo at night. You'll wonder why the birds went quiet. You'll look at your friends and realize you've forgotten their names. You'll feel a root pushing slowly behind your eye. And you'll remember this line. You are not lost. You are being planted. I can't fight anymore. I'm tired. I'm done trying to stay human when I know I'm not. Not anymore. The forest doesn't take you. It invites you. And eventually, we all say yes.